Hello and welcome to the Empowered, Sensitive and Creative podcast. My name is Rim. I'm an artist, a certified life coach and an NLP practitioner, and the creator of the Empowered, Sensitive and Creative retreats. Passionate about celebrating joy and beauty in the everyday, especially when things are falling apart, I'm insatiably curious about human nature, and I look into the world with reverence, awe, and a sense of wonder. Tune in for stories exploring healing through creativity, art, embracing sensitivity, and navigating the subconscious mind. I'll talk about the struggles that highly sensitive and creative people face, and share my experiences, insights, and favorite tools along the way. I'm here to empower you to turn what we often deem to be a curse into your biggest gift. I believe that the more we create together, the more we heal the world. So let's dive in. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Empowered, Sensitive and Creative podcast. I'm so happy and grateful for you tuning in. Hello, my dear sensitive and creative souls. I'm glad to be back. It's been a while, but I'm so excited. I've been thinking for a while to get back here, and I was kind of waiting for the perfect thing to talk about. And I don't know, for the past several months, I didn't really know what to talk about. I felt it totally pointless. I felt like I have nothing pertinent that matters to say. And it's not that actually I didn't have anything to say. I just needed to be in that phase of pondering and moving things around and actually focusing on my experience before I could share about it, before I could share about anything. I felt like, not in my daily life, but when it comes to communication and social media and talking about art and sensitivity and all of that, like my work, I felt like retreating from communicating, like hermiting in my cave. And it's interesting because this morning I wasn't sure I would do the podcast because I had decided I'm gonna go back when I feel like it. I don't want to force myself. And this morning I felt the pulse. And a few hours later on Instagram I saw a post and it really resonated. Unfortunately, I don't remember who said that. I just saw it randomly in my feed, and it said something like artists are like constantly struggling between the need to hide and the need to share and communicate. And I thought, yeah, that's so true. Like we want to, like if we make art, it's also because we want to share it. We want to share the beauty of the world, or we want to share a message. And at the same time, so often the only thing we want is to be left alone in our art studio making art or processing our emotions and not having to talk about anything, not having to show our work also, because it's so vulnerable to share our art. We would just want to hide. And I think that this is the case also for highly sensitive people, even if you're not an artist. But if you are very sensitive and if you also have a creative soul, it doesn't have to be art, I think there is this tension between the two extremes, the two opposite, being seen and hiding, showing, hiding, like participating with others, like being an active participant in life, and having this deep need to recover, to retreat, to stay on your own, because nervous system is so taxed from all of the stimuli that we just need to be on our own to get to find ourselves again. Like, because when we share, when we are with others, we are ourselves, of course, but a part of us is being taken over or is being mixed with the rest of the world. It's like there is a leak. It's not in a negative way unless you don't have boundaries, but it's because we feel, what I mean is like, when you feel things so intensely, so when you see so many details and like you don't do things in half, or you don't feel things in half at least, it's like experiencing the world takes so much out of you that you need to retreat, to recover, and to find yourself again, like to get to be you again. Like it's a way to cleanse as well. Like I feel like to remove all the stuff from the outside world. And in that way, it's a bit like, it's like we're a little bit like the moon, showing its light, sharing its beautiful face, if you will, and at other times hiding everything, leaving the sky totally dark and obscure. So instead of, because so often we say, it's so exhausting, I feel so exhausted, but I have to show up, I have to do this. Or I'm thinking, what if we see it in a different way? Like, what if it's a dance? It's like it's actually the rhythm, the basic, one of the most basic rhythms of life, showing and hiding, the dance of light and darkness. And just like our nervous system would be totally erratic and unbalanced if we would never take the time to retreat, like if we would not alternate our time of active participation in the outside world and time with our inner world, it's the same with us on Earth. It's the same for Earth. Like the moon stabilizes our world. If there was no moon, Earth, our planet Earth, would be totally erratic, might not tilt at all, and then there would not be seasons, or it might tilt too much, creating extreme, unlivable conditions. And isn't it the same for us? Artists, creatives, highly sensitive people. Those cycles of alternating light and dark are necessary to necessary to the foundation of our well-being and our functioning well. So it's not something to blame ourselves for, or not something to criticize ourselves for. It's actually a great thing. So today I wanted to talk about the moon and how we, sensitive and creative souls, can work with it, or can learn from it, or can align with it for more inner peace, serenity, and leading a life that is more in flow with natural energy, or the creative energy of life, of the world. But before I dive deeper into each phases of the moon and share some details and practical ideas, I want to share a story, like a personal story, because this is really the day I was totally blown away by the moon, because I've heard about living with the moon or following, like doing doing moon rituals. I've heard about that for a while, but I thought it was maybe a bit superstition and nice thing, nice fun thing to do, but not really realistic. But that day it totally changed my mind. So what happened at that time? This is several years back. I may have shared that story before, or part of it, but anyway, I was working in fashion. I was teaching at that time. I was teaching at university, and it was not the last year, but the year before the last, I quit that job. So I was still deep in it, and I was growing dissatisfied by the schedule, and also by the fact that actually I could not really do a lot of creative stuff or artistic stuff. I would share with my students creative stuff, or I would help them to be more creative. But me personally, I was not doing it. I was not making it. I was not, like, I didn't have my own art creative projects, and I really missed it. I remember at that time feeling quite bitter. And a friend at that time told me, she was more into spiritual stuff than me back then. And she said, oh, you could, it's the new moon, it's going to be the new moon tonight. You could like write down what you want, what you wish for in your life. And you can just, bury it in some plants. And that's a way to set an intention. I was like, okay, that sounds fun, actually. It's a nice activity. I can do it because I'm feeling quite desperate. So I'm feeling very sad and a little bit lost. Like, how can I change my situation? Because I want more. So that's what I did. I wrote down, I don't remember everything I wrote, but I remember this one thing. I said, I want more art and creativity in my life. And I cut my little piece of paper out and I buried it in my plant. And then I went to bed. And the day after, I was at work. I was on my teaching my Saturday class. And I had given my students an assignment, so they were focused on it, working on it. And I was like, okay, let me browse my phone to keep me awake or maybe find some inspiration. I saw in a group messaging app, someone had left a message and they said, I'm looking for someone who is good with textile. I'm looking for an artist who knows how to work with textiles for a project to do an art installation for a big coffee shop opening. And when I saw that, I was like, wow, I know textile. I studied textile at university. I used to have a fashion brand working with textiles. I kind of know quite a lot about textile. And actually, that was my favorite class at uni, the textile creation course. So I hit reply. I connected with that woman and we talked for a bit and I meet her at her office. It turns out she studied in Paris. She studied architecture in Paris. Her husband is French. And so it's not, it doesn't mean that that's why things happened for us, but it was a nice little connection, like an additional connection. For me, it felt like, wow, this is for me. There are so many signs that show that, this is the work for me. The project for me. And they gave me the job. Basically, it was to create 3 huge textile artwork for a big coffee shop opening. She was the main architect for that huge coffee shop chain that is very popular in the world, and they opened a lot of new shops, and they were opening a new upscale line of coffee shops, so they wanted it to look more special with some with unique art in each of them. And that was the new moon, the day after the new moon, literally the day after I had buried my wishes in my plants. So that was woo, insane. And by the time we started to talk to the time I actually signed the papers for the project, it took about 1 month, 30 days, which is the full, 29 days, which is the full lunar cycle. I didn't realize back then, of course, it's now in introspect, thinking about the time it took and the different phases, I realized it totally matched the different phases of the moon. And that project was huge because first it showed me that it was possible, that there were actually people looking for artists in the city where I was staying at back then, and that I can do it, and that I love doing it. I really, really, really love doing that project. And that gave birth to new projects. They commissioned me several artworks after that, and it was great. And actually this gave me the impetus to quit my job the following year, because I realized that's what I want to do. I want to be an artist. At that time I thought I want to be a textile artist. I love doing this big art installation. It comes quite naturally to me. Of course, I do need to work on the project, on the brief, on the concept, on the technique, because sometimes there are some things that technical challenges and all of that. But it felt like, wow, exciting, something that is worth it for me. it was really cool. And well, unfortunately, after that, COVID happened and they canceled all of the next projects because they closed down all of their shops. So then I transited it to yet another phase of my life and creative life, and I moved back to Europe. And then I could not do this textile art thing anymore because first I had to get rid of a lot of my material, and because I didn't know where I would be exactly for a few years, I thought I can't carry with me, I can't carry around all of those boxes. And then it was a big thing, this COVID stuff. So emotionally and everything, I kind of collapsed from many things. Life, like family, life situation, and all of so on happened. It all happened within a few years. And one way I found to reconnect with art that time was through drawing and painting with watercolor, and I loved it so much and it made me feel so good. It was very healing. So then I decided to continue in that path, at least for now, but who knows what will happen in the future. Anyway, that's not the topic of today's podcast. I just wanted to share how this new moon was so potent in my life and how it actually changed my life. Because before then, I never thought I could become an artist. I never thought about it. I always saw myself as a designer, and I didn't know I had this in me. I kind of admired people who were doing this, but I didn't know I could do it. So yeah, that was huge. Maybe you're already familiar with the lunation phases and you already do some rituals on the new moon and the full moon, and maybe you already have great results, or maybe not. And I have to say, I didn't have such big results since then, but I've been paying more and more attention to the moon over the past few years, and like noticing its phases and its impacts on me, and noting down my moods and how I feel and how I sleep. And I've also been tracking my cycle, my period cycle, and I started to see some patterns and draw some conclusion that I'm really influenced by the moon. Like I feel my energy differently according to the moon phases, even if even if I'm not aware of them, because I didn't really track before. I used to track just the new moon and the full moon just a little bit, but at first when that event happened, I kind of thought it was just a fluke. I was like, okay, beginner's luck, I was still a bit cynical. So I didn't really pay attention. But later on, I thought, well, if this happened on a new moon, there is no reason why something else, something similar or something different. I mean, not everything has to be like that big. But I felt like, okay, I think it can be helpful. And if only because it makes sense for me, because the moon, like as I shared earlier, the moon has such a big influence on our planet Earth. And then something else I learned recently, which was so exciting. I mean, I kind of knew it, but never paid attention to it. So maybe you already know it and you're going to say, duh, of course. But still, we call this the moon phases, but actually, or the lunar phases, but it should be called the solilunar phases, because in fact, it's the relationship between the sun and the moon. Because the moon doesn't change. It's not that the moon changes its colors or puts a veil on at different times of the month. The moon is always here, but the sun, it's like it's the sun position, the position of the moon compared to the sun that is changing, and that affects how we see it. So it's so beautiful, and like it's beautiful from a physical, material point of view, like a real life point of view, as an astronomical point of view, but also from a symbolical point of view. the phases of the moon that we see, it's actually phases in the relationship of the moon to the sun as it is seen from the point of view of the earth. So yes, lunar phases. I find this so amazing because in astrology, the moon, the earth, the sun, they all represent different parts of us. The sun represents spirit and heart, the moon our mind and psyche, and also our emotions, and the earth represents our body, the material world in which the relationship between our spirit and our mind unfolds. If the sun initiates everything, it's at the heart, so to speak, of everything, pun intended. Our spirit and our heart directs, and our body and the earth, our body makes it happen in a way. We still need the moon, which is our mind, our psyche, our emotions, which are actually able to give life, to make material our initial wish, like the wish that our spirit or heart wants, or challenges it, of course, depending of how our emotions and minds, if they want to cooperate or not, depending of our traumas and limiting beliefs and so on. If you want to learn more about this topic, I would encourage you to read Dane Rudyard's work and also Demetra George. They both wrote a lot about this topic. And since the moon, in astrology, the moon represents, like primarily she represents our emotions, it kind of makes sense that it has a huge impact on sensitive people. Since as a HSP, we tend to feel our emotions very intensely. And it also affects our energy levels and our intuition as well. The more I work with the moon, the more I feel my intuition awakens. I feel more aware of it. I can connect with it more easily. And I feel less second-guessing myself. That's really very interesting. It's a bit like the moon has become an ally, a friend, like a benevolent friend, a good friend, that she's here with me. And she smiles at me. And in a way, I'm having conversation with it during her different phases. She's an advisor, in a way. So now let's talk about the different phases of the moon and how to harness the energy. I think it's particularly useful when it comes to know when to start projects and when to rest, and to help to feel more serene and more confident when challenges and setbacks arise, which is inevitable. I find it also helped me to deal with self-criticism and taking things less personally, and also being less rushed, taking more my time and feeling more trusting. Because it's easy to say, like there's a lot of talk about, no need to rush anymore, take your time, there's no hurry. But it's easier said than done, especially if you have anxious tendencies and a perfectionist side of you that is quite strong. So, but for me, following the moon, working with the moon has helped me a lot with that. Like I feel less rushed than ever. Well, what I'm gonna share anyway, it's not meant as a rule. That's a big disclaimer here. It's just a guide and series of suggestions. Like for everything, take whatever sounds true to you or sounds interesting. You can try and see for yourself, and you can just discard the rest. The lunation cycle can be divided into two halves, like broadly divided into two halves. There is the first half, which is the waxing phase, where the energy builds, and when we are kind of focusing outward and focusing on taking actions. And then the second half, which is the waning phase, when we harvest the fruits of our efforts, integrate lessons, and release what no longer serves us and prepare for the next cycle, and so on and so on and so on. Each phase is defined by the relationship between the sun and the moon, as we saw earlier. At the new moon, the sun and moon are in conjunction. They are close together, which makes the sky dark, at least appear dark for us on Earth. And therefore the moon is invisible, but it's still there. Its energy is still there. Symbolically, it's as if the sun and the moon merged as one. So it's the connection, the merging of spirit, heart, and emotions, giving birth to a new spark of spirit, a new sense of purpose and will, and creativity emerges. In a way, it's the beginning of life, the initiation of life. And it's always responding to the lessons and needs of the previous cycle, which is why I think it's so amazing that we get to experience this every month. Every month there are new possibilities. We can set new intention, we can plant new seeds, we can adjust. I find that phase is quite similar to the beginning of spring, early March, mid-March, when the air is still crisp outside. Most trees are still bare, but still we can see that the light is a little bit different. Something has changed. There are a few buds here and there. Things start to be different. New life is coming. But it's not time to take action yet and to rush into things. It's more a time of introspection, which is a very powerful time for HSPs who naturally tend to turn inward, who naturally tend to introspect. So at that time, setting gentle intentions rather than pressuring oneself with big goals is much more efficient. And it's very soothing for the nervous system as well. Some examples of supportive practices are journaling, meditation, quiet visualization. I don't see the moon, but I like to imagine it. I like to visualize it, and I visualize it smiling and winking at me, telling me it's gonna be all right, and I wink back at her. And once I've written my new intentions, once I've set or made a wish or set intention for what I want in this new cycle, this coming cycle, I like to imagine this visualization, the moon, the light of the moon coming into me. And I breathe it in and then I breathe it out. And I imagine my whole body being surrounded by the soft embrace of the moon, the soft light of the moon, the nurturing light of the moon. Then the next phase, which lasts a few days, is the waxing crescent moon. And in that phase, you can actually see the moon, just a little smile or a little banana, a crescent appearing and getting bigger day by day. And this is a phase that corresponds to, if we still keep the comparison of the plant. So the new moon was the seed and the waxing crescent moon is the sprout. It's when the sprout is growing and it's pushing through the soil to grow. This phase embodies the initial effort required to bring a vision to life. That's when we take the first steps toward bringing our vision to life. And inevitably, we will face doubt. Yet, it's important to move forward with faith. That's what I meant when I say it really helps to diffuse self-doubt and second-guessing myself and overthinking. Before, when I was more disconnected to the moon and the elements, I was second-guessing myself a lot and thinking that maybe I was doing the wrong thing or maybe it was not a good idea and procrastinating a lot. Since I'm paying more attention to the moon, I'm I like to remind myself, it's normal, it's the crescent phase. It's normal that I experience self-doubt. It doesn't mean that I should not do it. And it helps me to keep the faith, really, literally. It reminds me that it's my ego that is developing the courage to break from the past, because maybe before something didn't work, or I know that it didn't work for someone or something like that, or I'm trying something new. But I have the trust, I can trust in the new path. And I use that time to commit to my chosen direction. It doesn't mean that I'm not gonna change and redirect later on. Maybe it's not gonna work, but still I have to give it a chance. I have to give my vision a chance. And it's still not the time, because the moon is still not very bright. It's not the time to take huge action. It's more a time of taking it slowly, like moving forward, but breaking your vision into small, achievable steps. We don't have a race to run. We don't want to burn out. There is no hurry. It's an experiment. Every month, every cycle is an experiment that we can always modify later on. So really taking small steps, and a little goes a long way, every day a little bit, and getting clearer and clearer on what we want to achieve on our goals, not paying attention to the results. There are no results yet. It's just trusting the unknown. When the plant is growing, for a while we don't know. Before the sprout has pushed through the soil and started to grow on us, like on the other side, it's under the soil. We don't see it. We have to trust it's still there. It's the same for us. And if there is a resistance, it's normal. It's part of growth. The obstacles that we will face, whether outwardly, either inner obstacles, they're opportunities to learn and adapt, so it's okay. It's really important to stay committed during that time. And I find that creating daily rituals help to reinforce our dedication and to maintain steady progress and remain patient. Another thing that I find is very helpful is every morning before deciding what I'm going to do is to listen to my intuition, to tap into my energy, tap into my body and ask myself, what do I feel focusing on today? And what is the next stone that I can put on the pavement? After a few days, it's a time for the first quarter moon. By the way, if you wonder why it's called first quarter, because I did, it was like, wait, why is it represented as a half moon why is it a first quarter? It's because we only see one half of the moon, right? It's a sphere. It's a volume. It's not flat. So we can only see a quarter of it. When it appears half full, half lit, it's actually only a quarter of it. Anyway. This is the root phase. It's when the sprout becomes it's when sorry, I need to drink. My voice is going off. Sorry. So it's when the sprout becomes develop roots, so that it can have a strong foundation, really. So obviously this is the phase of foundation building for us as well, for our visions, for our projects. And as often, it's like a test. It's a testing ground. Are we going to manage to translate our intentions into tangible reality? In that phase, obstacles appear. They require direct action and adjustment. It's a kind of a challenging time, but don't worry, it doesn't last for very long. It's just a few days. And we typically may encounter resistance, and we need to make course corrections. Maybe it's not something big, but usually we have to make few tweaks here and there. And it's often a time as well to make decisions and to be bold. To stabilize growth and build a solid foundation for our intention, it's important to go for it. There is a point where we need to go for it. And maybe things didn't happen as we planned it, or we thought we really wanted something, and now we're almost getting it, but we realize it's not exactly what we wanted. So it's a time to kind of struggle with yourself, like of an internal conflict, because we need to see, okay, that's what I wanted, that's what I imagined in my head, but the reality is a little bit different. It's a perfect time to make adjustments to your plans. It could mean developing new skills, seeking support from somebody else, or just persevering through challenges. And for some people, persevering could also mean choosing to rest and not pushing too much. Something I like to do, I do it every day, no matter the moon phase, but I think it's really useful during that phase, is to, at the end of the day, to write down what worked, what didn't work, what was satisfying, what was draining, like what challenges did you face and what did you learn from it, and what do you need to release, or what do you need to keep going, to keep trying. I think it's really helpful, because not all obstacles can be solved in the same way. Like some things we need to keep going, but if it's like, imagine you're frustrated because something didn't work, because you didn't find the time to do it, because you were helping everyone around you. It doesn't mean you need to keep helping everyone around you and hoping you'll find the time to do your thing. It could be you have to stop. It could tell you, I feel drained today because I've been helping everyone and I forgot to prioritize my own needs or prioritize my project. So tomorrow I'm going to focus on myself and on my project. And that would eliminate one challenge. Although it will be challenging if you're not used to prioritize yourself, but at least it helps you to see more clearly what needs to go, what needs to stay. The next phase is called the gibbous moon, and that's when the moon is very light. It's almost full, but still not yet. And this is the time of refinement and preparation. It's the time of the plant starting to have buds. It's a time of refinement, analysis, dedication, perseverance. We're almost there. It's almost blooming. We need to strengthen our commitment to our purpose and clarify what truly matters. Did we make progress? Yes? No? What do we need to adjust? And inevitably, this will also bring up self-doubt, because we had our ideal vision and now our vision is almost shaped, but maybe it doesn't look like what we had imagined. Maybe we will doubt our abilities, our capabilities, or the validity of our goals. Like, what's the point? Or I'm not good enough. These kind of thoughts will come to the surface. So it's really important to acknowledge these thoughts, but still not letting them take power over you. You can still do it. You can still give life to your dreams, to your project, to your vision. It doesn't have to be perfect. The bud needs to trust and to be strong before it's ready to bloom. Maybe it needs some fertilizer or some nourishment. It's the same for us. It's a good time to hone our skills. And after a few days, so 14 days after the new moon, it's finally time for the full moon. And at that time, the sun and the moon are in opposition, which means they're opposite each other, and the earth is between them. Then the moon shines brightly, illuminated by the sun's rays. This is when the journey reaches its peak, either culminating in fulfillment or revealing fractures that lead to dissolution. Meaning that either your new purpose or new intention that you set during the new moon, that was seeded at the new moon, either it crystallizes into conscious awareness, vision, an objective truth, and understanding. Either you have taken action towards making that intention tangible, either you did not, because sometimes we choose not to. It's not the moment, or actually we even don't realize we could act on this dream. Or maybe it was not the moment. Or maybe we acted on it and not everything worked the way we thought it would. But it doesn't matter, because even if not everything worked, I think it's still very important to appreciate the fruits of your labor. It's a time for celebration and gratitude. You made it. If your intentions have manifested, if they became material as desired, that's great. You can celebrate your success. But if not, you can be grateful for the learning that comes with it. You can think about what adjustments need to be made. The full moon illuminates both the positive and negative aspects of your journey. And usually the full moon is also a very emotional time. Everything is lit up. everything is revealed to us, so our emotions as well. Therefore, it's very powerful time for emotional release. It's super important to allow yourself to feel your feelings fully. And since it's all about celebration and illuminating, it's also a great time to connect with others and share our experiences, sharing what we learned, whether it's positive or more. I don't really want to say negative. Let's say maybe challenging or a little bit more difficult or painful. During that time, it's very helpful to ground. It helps to manage and process intense shifts of emotions as we HSP might feel during that time, even more than usual. Spending time in nature, breath work, self-soothing, taking a bath, making art, creative expression, painting, dancing, writing, all of this helps to process emotions and clear all this energy. After the full moon comes the disseminating moon, which is the phase of the fruit, which is all about sharing and teaching. The energy is about communication, wisdom sharing, integration, social contribution. We distribute the harvest, sharing the knowledge and insights gained during the previous phases. You can see it as giving back to the community, teaching, offering guidance to others. And by doing so, it also helps us to integrate our experiences even more. This is a time when we move from a place of self-focus to a focus on contributing to the greater good. That's when, my dear sensitive soul, your very detailed and refined insights are really helpful for other people. So it's not a time to hide and think that what we have to say has no value at all. It's quite the opposite. Even if you doubt yourself, it's the perfect moment. You might not be sure how to share your experiences. What can you do to help others? Think about lessons you've learned that could benefit someone else. It doesn't mean you have to help the whole world. Just one person is already great. Can you offer guidance or support to those who are just starting out on their own journey? Or maybe you can volunteer your time to a cause you want to support, something you believe in. Then that time is great for that. The next phase is the last quarter. The sky is getting darker night after night. This is a time for inner reflection and evaluation, a time to compost the experiences of the past cycle, extracting the nutrients that will nourish future growth. It's a bit like the end of autumn when we are getting ready for winter. This is a great time for release, reassessment, transition, restructuring. This phase is a time of letting go of what no longer serves us, preparing for a new cycle. This time is also quite natural for HSPs because it's all about introspection and self-assessment. Some questions I like to ask in that phase is what aspects of your life are no longer aligned with your true self? What beliefs or patterns are holding you back? What can I release? Resentment, regrets, or limiting beliefs that are weighing me down? That's when the ego surrenders outdated structures. And it's not always a comfortable phase, to be honest, because sometimes it requires to face things that are not so pleasant about ourselves. And to be honest, making changes in our beliefs and values, it's not easy at all. It's not comfortable. We need to go against what we are used to, what our ego is used to. It's also a great time to physically cleanse, not only emotionally cleanse, and also energetically cleanse. So it's a perfect time for cord-cutting rituals, releasing rituals, cleansing rituals, decluttering your space, decluttering your wardrobe, cleaning out your computer files, and so on and so on. And that leads us to the last phase, which is the waning crescent, called also the balsamic moon. That phase corresponds to the seed renewal. It's a time of quiet contemplation and reflection, a necessary pause before the new cycle begins. It's like winter. It's a period of retreat, introspection, and deep healing as we prepare for the next lunar cycle. Like seeds germinating in the darkness, visions for the future begin forming in the subconscious. That's really important to let go at that time, to spiritually surrender, trust in forces beyond our conscious understanding. We don't have to force ourselves to think our way through releasing and letting go. And in order to do that, like to really let go, the most important thing to do is to rest. Deep rest, prioritizing self-care, creating space for introspection, to relax, help our nervous system to chill, to relax, our emotions to settle, and just be with ourselves, just be with yourself. And let go of the past cycle of whatever happened or didn't happen during the cycle that is almost finished. Like, it doesn't matter what has been done, and that's it. You will get soon an opportunity to try again or to start anew. This is really a time for inward reflection and integration, and a very important time for dreams and intuition. They may offer insights into the themes of the upcoming cycle. But you see, it's not necessarily something that you need to direct yourself. It comes from life itself. It's a co-creation between life and us. The unseen forces of life are busy doing their work while we are resting. It's really a period of deep healing and learning to embrace stillness and to be nourished by calm and quietness, which I think is so necessary in our busy times when we're always running and rushing. This phase only lasts a few days before the new moon, but it's so important to take this time to pause. Then we have more energy during the rest of the cycle. So these were the eight phases of the lunar cycle. I hope this journey through the phases has been illuminating for you, and that it will give you some inspiration for the next cycle. And really, I want to invite you to just set an intention to be more aware of the moon, to start noticing how it affects you. And maybe later on, maybe like for the first cycle and then the next cycle, to start to note down your observations, but really taking it slowly. And the most important, as always, is to be curious and open-minded and willing to observe and notice and try something new and see how it works or how it affects. Maybe you find this quite resonating with you, or maybe you'll have different results, and that's great. Something that I do and I find very simple, very easy, is to have a lunar journaling practice, which is very easy. Every day I note down which phase of the moon it is and what is its energy. And then intuitively I'll see if it matches my mood and what I feel like doing that day. It helps me to structure my work and planning. And of course, it's not a rigid practice. I skip some days and it's okay. It doesn't matter. But overall, I can see the patterns and the trends, and I find it's helping. It's actually grounds me. It's really, following the moon phases has really helped me to see how my sensitivity is a gift, how my intuition is powerful, and how my connection to nature cycles can help me in actually living my life more authentically and in a more fulfilled way. I feel less disempowered and more empowered, obviously, to live my life according to me, like to do me, really me. Building a stronger relationship with the moon actually helped me to build a stronger relationship with myself. I really see the moon as a gentle guide, helping us flow rather than fight against our sensitivities. Something I forgot to to say is when I note in my journaling practice is I write what I feel like doing and so on, but I also write down how I feel emotionally and physically and energetically, like how is my energy that day. And also, what do I feel like creating creatively? Because obviously, it's also very important. If you do this over time, you might start noticing patterns too. And you might find that you connect to certain phases of the moon more than others. And that's totally okay. The more we embrace our natural rhythms, the more we allow our sensitivity to become a strength. It can work for us, not against us. The moon isn't something outside of us. It's a mirror of our inner world, constantly reminding us that change is natural, rest is essential, and our emotions, just like the tides, they are meant to flow. It's totally normal. It's part of nature. That's how we were created. And there's a reason for that. One last tip about the moon and how to track its phases. You can look at an online ephemeris or on some moon phase apps or astrology websites, like astro.com, for example, to help you track the moon of the phase. Or you can get a lunar calendar or solilunar calendar, which is actually more accurate. I used to look every day, but after a while I found it a bit tiresome, and I like to be inspired by beauty and to have something that is practical and easy to look at. So I created my own solilunar calendar with my own art, and it's gonna be available soon. So that can also be something that could help you to track the moon phases. If this episode resonated with you, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you feel connected to the moon cycle as an HSP? I'd love to hear from you. You can find me on Instagram at reem.creativeenergy or at Empowered Sensitive Creative. The links will be in the show notes, or send me a message and I will respond. I always respond. And if you enjoyed this episode, consider sharing it with a fellow sensitive soul who might need this reminder today. Until next time, take care and honor your own unique flow. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and if it has inspired you, please share it around you. Also, if you feel called to it, please subscribe to the podcast and leave me a review. It really helps to spread the word out. All your questions are welcome. You can send them to me on Instagram at reem.creativeenergy.com or email me via my website, reemcreativeenergy.com. And don't worry, I'll share in the show notes exactly where to find me. Until next time, sending you loving creative energy.